All right, so in today's video, we're going to show you how to make a cranberry apple sausage stuffing. This is the stuffing that's going to end all other stuffings. That will make all the other stuffings look inferior to your stuffing.
Wow.
So in this same video, we're also going to make a variation of my mom's twice baked potatoes. All right, so in our stuffing, we're going to start off with our wet ingredients. We're going to get all of our stuff that's going to be wet, and we're going to get all that incorporated, and then we're going to cook it down. Then we're going to cut up our dry ingredients, and we're going to mix them all up. Eventually, the two are going to combine, and then they're going to go into the oven, and we're going to end up with a masterpiece. So we're going to start off with a little bit of sage, a little bit of thyme, and just do a rough chop on that. And we're going to just kind of break it down. Again, don't destroy your herbs when you're cutting them. Just let them be. The more you cut them and the more you abuse them, the more the flavor is going to end up left in the cutting board and not in your food. Next, we're going to break down some apples. So we're going to take them, the camera fall. We're going to take just the sides and just coring your apple, making sure that we're not getting the seeds or any of the meaty parts in there. Separate the rest. And then a simple chop on these. We want about 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch sizes. So like little tiny pieces like that. We're going to do a total of 4 to 6 apples. It depends on how much stuffing you're making and the size of your apples. Today we're probably going to do 5 because we got kind of like medium dainty size apples. I like the green apple because they're a little bit sour, and everything else that we're putting into there has some sweetness. The onion's going to bring sweetness, the carrot's going to bring sweetness, even the stock that we're going to use is going to bring sweetness. So we don't want to overdo it and make it this super sweet stuffing. So now that we have our apples cut up, we're going to break down some celery. We're going to take our stock, just cut the end off of it. We're going to get rid of the center parts, the hearts, because that's poison. It's not really, but it doesn't taste good. We're just gonna do it in one quick steady chop. So we've already rinsed it. It's nice and clean. We just spread the stalks out and rinse it out so that way you get all the dirt out of there and all the nasty stuff. And now we're just gonna do a simple chop on our celery. And we're looking for like 1/2 inch pieces. We want them to stand out. They're gonna get cooked, so we don't want them to be super huge. And next, we're moving on to mushrooms. I like brown mushrooms. I don't think there's any other kind of mushroom that should be bought. The white mushroom is basically tastes like nothing. Brown mushrooms have a nice umami flavor. They give you a little bit of meatiness to them. I take the stalks and you just kind of pop them out. Because they're a good solid size, these are probably 2 inches wide. I'm gonna do a third cut on them. So I'm gonna cut them into thirds, and then I'm gonna cut them into thirds again. So we're just gonna go with a total of 12 pieces. So thirds and fourths, I guess. Is that how math works? 12 pieces? All right, so we've got some celery, apple, and mushroom in there. Next, we're just adding some carrot that we've already peeled. Again, same size chop as we're doing on everything. I like to leave them whole. Some people will split them. I think it's nice to have good sized chunks in there. It makes the stuffing a little more rustic and a little more stuffing-y. So we're just gonna add in 4 carrots into our mix. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in 2 medium onions. We're gonna leave the root attached because this is how we prevent ourselves from crying. Then we're gonna take the chef's knife. We're gonna run the tip of it into the onion at about 1/2 inch pace because we want some decent sized chunk in there. And then we're gonna still not cut all the way through the root. We're gonna come into the onion, slice across it, and then we're gonna come down. Now we have some nice evenly diced onion. When you get towards the end, roll it onto its long side and continue to dice. Turn, continue to dice, turn, continue to dice. So you're left with your onion root and no tears. So we're just getting some garlic prepped, and we're gonna chop up about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, add it into our wet mix, and then we're gonna take it over to the stove here in a second, and we're gonna cook it all down. Super thin slices, that's all we're looking for. If you can pick it up and kind of look through it, that's a good thing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off with a little bit of our garlic, our fresh chopped garlic right in the pan. Again, we're just gonna keep working the wet ingredients to our stuffing. A little tiny bit of olive oil, and then we're gonna let that kind of get warm and do its thing. And then we're gonna use a wooden spoon, and we're gonna keep working that around the pan. We don't want our garlic to burn, we want it to get aromatic. As soon as you can smell it, that's when it's time to dump in everything else. All right, so we're starting to get some fragrance out of our garlic, and now we're gonna add in 1 pound of ground sausage. And we're going to incorporate that in with our garlic, and that's going to keep our garlic from burning because it's not hot already, but it's going to keep it fragrant, and it's going to put that flavor of the garlic into the sausage, and that's what we want. All right, and then we're going to brown this up. Then we're going to hit it with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and we're going to start going to town. We want the pork to start to brown on the outside, but we don't want the garlic to really get that brown. The more brown the garlic gets, the sweeter it gets. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of a browning on our sausage and our garlic is still not brown, it's still got some life to it, we're gonna add in our wet ingredients slowly. So we don't wanna overload it because it'll get too cold. So we're gonna add in most of the onion and dip into the celery, carrots a little bit. And then we're gonna give that a stir, let it incorporate. All right, now we're not gonna mess with this too much. We're gonna let it kind of steam on itself. And as it steams, it's gonna keep cooking down all those wet ingredients. And it's gonna get a lot softer and a lot easier to move. And then we're gonna mix it into our dry ingredients and it's gonna be rad. So now that our wet mix has been cooking down with our sausage for a little bit, we're gonna add in 2 cups of chicken stock and we're gonna let this kind of get all squishy like. We're gonna keep cooking that on high for probably another 5 or 6 minutes to let everything really kind of incorporate. After that, we're gonna mix it in with our dry ingredients, stir it up a little bit, chuck it in the oven. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut up some potatoes. We're gonna make like a mashed potato casserole type thing. It's a play on something that my mom made for us when we were growing up. She called them twice baked potatoes. She would bake a potato, hollow it out, mix it with a bunch of deliciousness, stuff it back in the potato skin, and then bake it again. It's extremely decadent, extraordinarily delicious. I do not have the patience to do that, so I make it kind of like as a potato casserole. It's a lot easier, it's still just as delicious, and I don't want to shoot myself in the face while I do it. One of the most important things, like when you're boiling potatoes, is to end up with even sizes. If you end up with a bunch of weird sizes, like some of them will disintegrate on you and some of them won't be cooked all the way through. So if you cut them consistently, you can rely on like a good cooking method. So we're gonna do nice even cuts. Nailed it. I like golden potatoes. These are not Yukon Gold, these are yellow potatoes, but they're very good for making mash. That or red potatoes. Red potatoes are good. Not a big fan of the russet potato. The skin on it is extraordinarily tough and it doesn't work well in a mash. So now that we have our evenly sliced potatoes, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take them and throw them into a rolling, boiling pot of water. We're gonna let them stay in there for about 12 minutes until they get nice and cooked all the way through. A little test to make sure that they're cooked all the way through. Stick them with a fork. If the fork comes out cleanly, then they're done. If it doesn't, if it sticks in there and it pulls the potato out of the water, keep them going for another minute. So now that we've let our wet cook down a bit and it's releasing a lot of its own liquid, so like all the vegetables that we have in there, we're gonna go ahead and dump it over our dry, which is a loaf of Italian, a loaf of sourdough, and then a little bit of crusty old bread that my mom found. Thanks, Craisons. It looks like a lot right now, but once all the liquid sets in on that bread, it's gonna shrink it down quite a bit. So we're gonna let it set for a minute, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna give it a good solid stir. We're gonna top it off with a bit of butter. And when I say a bit of butter, I mean a disturbing amount of butter because it's Thanksgiving and you only live once. Right on top, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover it with some aluminum foil. We're gonna toss it in the oven for about 35, 40 minutes. And then the last like 5 to 10 minutes, we're gonna take the foil off and kind of let it get hot on top. So we boiled the potatoes for about 12 and a half, 13 minutes. They're nice and done. We've kind of done a little pre-mash on them. So we're gonna throw in a couple eggs, some sour cream, some butter, and some grated sharp cheddar cheese, and a little bit of half and half. Then we're gonna hit it with our hand mixer. Egg. Egg. About 8 ounces of sour cream. And again, about a pound of potatoes. And like a legit tablespoon and a half of butter. And then about 6, 7 ounces of shredded cheese. Then a little bit of half and half. We want a little bit of cream in there, just blend everything together, even though we already have butter and sour cream in there. Maybe a tablespoon or 2. And then we're gonna hit it with the stand mixer. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and add in salt and pepper to taste. This is purely discretional. Some people like a lot of salt, some people like a lot of pepper. We're gonna throw it into a casserole dish, and then it's gonna go into the oven for about 15, 20 minutes to let it get kind of roasty on top. Thank you guys for joining us today. It was fun to make some food with you. If you enjoy making this at home, go ahead and hashtag it with James Likes Beers, and keep looking out for more content. We're gonna come out with some more stuff very, very soon.